All right. Well, in the interest of time, thank you for being here tonight. I appreciate everyone joining live or via video. My name is Peter Wernicke. I'm the one of the members, representatives from the town of Franklin for Tri-County School Committee, and with me is the other member.
So I'm Jen D'Angelo, the other member of the Tri-County School Committee representing Franklin.
And also with us is Harry Takasian.
I'm Harry Takasian. I'm the Director of Facilities at Tri-County.
And so we're here tonight to talk about the building project that we have approved as a committee and have brought forward to the 11 member communities that we feel is important for the future of Tri-County. And it all begins with a story. 50 years ago, in the mid-70s, the federal government and the state of Massachusetts came together with a plan to build and develop vocational training programs across the country. Federal and state money combined built Tri-County and 18 other regional vocational technical schools in the Commonwealth. 50 years later, here we are today talking about replacing that original structure. So Tri-County opened in 1977, and although it's been very well maintained and looks very good from a certain point of view, when you start digging into the exterior envelope of the building, you start looking at the interior finishes, you start looking at how construction methods have changed in the last 50 years. 50 years ago, it was okay to put piping inside walls. And now 50 years later, we've inherited problems where leaks happen out of nowhere and water comes through fixtures and ceilings and out of the floors. And they're hard to find. They're hard to find where those problems exist. You have to open walls, you have to make the necessary repairs, and then eventually it's going to happen again because systems fail over time. I'm almost 50 years old. I've had a hip replacement. My original parts are wearing out, and Tri-County is too. Although it's a great school, great programs, the trades, and if you've looked at our website about the building project, you've seen and you've heard the story that the trades are desperate for more workers. The average age of an electrician today is in the 50s. So they're headed toward retirement. We really need to invest as a Commonwealth and as a community in bringing more people into the trades so that we can have those workers who are essential for all of our homes and industries to be successful. And so we come to the committee today to talk about this project, which we think, having examined a multitude of options, repairing the existing structure, addition and renovation options, and new construction options. There were more than a dozen options that we looked at from a cost standpoint, from a timing standpoint, from a standpoint of disruption to student learning. How much would it impact students year to year to year to have any of these three methodologies come to fruition? And after months of study, we came to the conclusion as a committee unanimously that the most cost-effective option would be to build behind the current building, tear down the current structure once the new building is finished, and then add the athletics fields last. That might sound familiar because we followed the same methodology with the high school not too long ago. So that's our plan, to really effectively think about providing a 21st century education, updated facilities, and a better environment for our students. Now, there are certainly some deficits to the current building. Among them, and really the three most notable, I think, have to do with security, fire suppression, and ADA compliance. In 1977, when the building opened, ADA compliance wasn't the law yet. So we've learned through the Department of Education, the Office of Civil Rights, there should be standards for height and clearances of toilets, getting in and out of restrooms. There should be a certain distance afforded to gurneys coming from an ambulance to get into an elevator to reach any part of a building. There are standards and expectations for the slope and angle and height of handlebars to get into any structure, educational or otherwise. And then in the 1970s, they built to a standard that's not acceptable anymore. It's not up to code. From a security standpoint, I hate to say it, but think of every school shooting that we've ever heard of. It's very easy in the current arrangement at Tri-County to walk through the front door. Maybe someone will stop you. Hopefully some of the school resource officer will stop you. But if that person's busy, you can freely walk anywhere in the building. It's very hard to control population once they're past the front door. That's not to say that it's not a safe building, because it certainly is. But it could be better. And so with a new building, we can exercise some better controls. And the third has to do with fire suppression. In the 1970s, schools were not built with sprinkler systems. We're in a beautiful library here that underwent a renovation. And above us are sprinkler heads that will be deployed and make us very wet should the fire happen. Well, that's built to a certain standard of expectation that we have as a community for this building, for the people and patrons of the library. And the same is true for Tri-County. It doesn't have a fire suppression system. And so to think about retrofitting the existing facility and drilling and opening floors and opening ceilings to make that happen, it's a heavy lift financially just to do that piece. And to take all the other corrective measures that we feel are necessary, thinking about it from a cost effectiveness standpoint, if we fix to the current standard on all of those conditions and more in the existing facility, it'll cost north of $160 million, and none of that is reimbursable by the state. So instead, what we've done is we've gone through the Massachusetts School Building Authority to seek reimbursement, similar to how the project worked with the Franklin High School. And so we were granted approval. We were accepted into the MSBA program. We went through all of the particulars on the schedule, and we have it on the website to show all the different steps that MSBA requires. We were accepted. We presented what we thought was the best option for the future of Tri-County, and it's been within the last month that they've said, yes, you can go forward with a vote. Now, this is not just a Franklin question. You've seen the signs around campus, not campus, excuse me, I work for a college. You've seen, I default to that language, go Bridgewater State. But what I'll say is that you've seen the signs around town, the metal signs that say Tri-County election. And one of the ways that we build this event tonight was, what's that all about? That's about this. It's simply a yes or no vote on this plan. And there are 11 different communities in the Tri-County district. So if you think about from Sherburne all the way down to Seekonk, that's our district. So Franklin's sort of in the middle. We have 11 member communities. We're all voting on the same day at the same time. So it's October 24th from noon to 8 p.m. and we're simply looking for a vote either in favor of or in rejection of this plan. It's not how to fund it. That's a question for how the communities individually will fund it. This is simply, is this an appropriate step, and do you agree with this plan that this is right for our community? Because Tri-County is also Franklin School. How'd I do?
You did great.
Great. So with us tonight, we have a variety of different things, and certainly Harry can talk about the current conditions. We don't have blown up photos of some of the deficits because those aren't pretty. No one likes to see leaky water and pipes, but Harry can certainly talk with you about it. As we look at really the vision for the building, talking from the security standpoint, we would have 2 dedicated separate entrances. For the students, we would have students enter from the left section as you're looking at the building. On the right side is a separate entrance dedicated to the public where members of the community could come for the early childhood education program, any pre-professional, pre-law programs. Jerry's Place, the restaurant, would be a separate entrance here so that members of the public would not be easily able to access the rest of the building. So there would be some reasonable separation that we can ensure through 2 dedicated separate entrances for the public and for the students, the larger, of course, being for the students. Thinking about the footprint, if we imagine, and in another diagram I think we have over here, it's actually outlined in a light pink, but the building is actually right here. So again, the solar field is directly behind, and so the building would be built there. The idea that we have in having a new building, one of the advantages is that it would provide minimal disruption to our students. With an addition and renovation, which I'll tell you the MSBA really wanted us to consider. They really prefer that the districts, vocational and traditional school districts, work through the addition and renovation program. The problem that we found with that is that over 10 years of renovating spaces and shifting students and spending up to $3 million on mobile trailers for classrooms in a phased approach to move students, that would just be too high of a cost. Not a financial cost per se, but a cost to learning. It was simply too great. And the timeline is really, I think, an unacceptable one. With this model, we build in 3 years. In year 4, the current structure starts to come down, and soon after, the athletic fields get built. So we get to realize the potential without disrupting current learning in any way, shape, or form. We improve the facilities. Part of the thing about vocational education is a lot of the equipment is very unique and special. You don't find it in every district like you do in a vocational district. So the equipment's more expensive. There are some pieces that potentially could come over from the current facility, but a lot of it by necessity would need to be new to fit out the current spaces. In the design, we'd have an open learning commons. If you've been to the Ben Franklin Charter School, you may have seen that learning commons. Certainly larger in scale, but similar in design, and I think you see this in other districts across the Commonwealth with new design. It would involve, there is actually a gravel road currently that leads up to the site, and this would be one of the primary entrances to the facility as well. Harry, are there any other features of the new building that we should highlight?
No, you did a pretty good job outlining it. Well, you know, one of the things MSBA requires is to get the building as close to LEED certified as possible. So it'll be as green a building as we can get it within the requirements and laws. There's some, there's some thoughts of doing some green vegetative roofing and stuff to help with the stormwater, utilize that, and some green space within the building. But overall, it's gonna be a great facility that can handle today's technology, which is the biggest problem with our current building. It looks great, but it can't handle it doesn't have the bones to handle today's technology. You know, and that's the biggest thing with this, is so we can provide the students with state-of-the-art training to prepare them for the workforce.
Thanks, Harry. Yeah, I'll tell you too that all of our vocational schools in the state are actually failing at the same time. So there are districts who are a little bit farther ahead. They've done the addition and renovation programs. I don't know how many have done a full. There are some who are building new. But for those who've done addition and renovation, they have said, 201, we wish we had done new because we couldn't predict what was coming at us with what remained. And so we listened to that message, and that feeds into this. Harry talked about efficiency, and I think that's really important from a LEED certification standpoint. I believe we're aiming for silver, so it's bronze, silver, gold, gold being the highest, and so we're aiming for silver. However, the building envelope, and Jen, would you mind grabbing that one and just holding that up? So it's 3 floors. Right now it's 2-ish because there's ramps. But if we look at this design, this exploded diagram kind of shows you that it's a more compact footprint, which makes the energy efficiency in the building envelope, keeping and preserving energy and heating and cooling to the best degree possible to preserve it. So part of the thing about the design that we really like is that the shops, the trades in the back, are adjacent to the classrooms. And so from a partnership between faculty and vocational instructors, they can more directly collaborate without having to travel across the building to meet up with one another. Students can quite literally travel across the classroom, or across the hallway, rather, from English and history classes right directly into the vocational trade spaces as well. So we think that this 3-floor design is very efficient. It certainly uses the site well. Similar to the Franklin High School, there's a courtyard in the middle. This will be really for the early childhood development program. There are a number of people in Franklin who've taken advantage of that for early childhood care for their own children or grandchildren. So this provides a better space for them as well. And the green roof design that Harry was talking about would obviously be up here on the 3rd. If we go down, again, a little closer up diagram. The first is, I would say, over there, a little bit prettier. This is a top-down view to just show the layout of parking, the fields, and the facility itself, with loading, emergency services, and really dedicated docking space in the back for equipment to come in for the trades. So we have a wonderful facing design for the public. If you were to drive around the circle to the rest of the building, it would look like it was value engineered, because that's the plan, to save money and provide the best overall quality design and experience for the communities. So you might be wondering, great, what's the cost? Well, there is a cost. Going through the MSBA program, there's a reimbursement process. So it's 56.56% of reimbursable expenses the state will repay. Well, 56.56 of reimbursable expenses essentially translates to about 29% of the total construction cost, because there are certain things the state, by rule, will not reimburse for, whether that's parking, paving, site clearance, and things like that. But other components are reimbursable. So in essence, we're getting about 29% of the cost paid for, subsidized by the state, because we've gone through the due diligence of the MSBA program. However, there is a cost that gets allotted out to communities. And my friend Jen here has pointed out in several of our committee meetings over the last few months, Tri-County has never once, in the 50 years that it's existed on the hilltop off of Pond Street, come to the communities for asking for any money for any sort of renovations or any major upgrades. This is the very first time. And hopefully, we won't be doing this again for another 50 years. Because the goal is to build another 50-year structure that lasts and lasts and lasts, that we can maintain, as we've done with the current structure, really, really well. But in terms of cost, it's based on a formula. As you would expect from the state, there's a formulation based on enrollment. How many students are sent to Tri-County from each of the member towns? So Franklin, we're actually, and we have been for a long time, we've been the second largest sending school, meaning we send the second most students annually. And so at the snapshot time of last year, October 1st of 2022, we had 164 students out of around 1,000, which is the total enrollment. The only town higher was North Attleboro at 238, and it varies from there. And so it's based on a percentage of how many students are coming. That's the cost borne by the town. So Sherburne sent 5 students last year, and it's around that same number this year, because of course students graduate and new students come in. So their total estimated yearly debt is $63,000, which for an impact value of a house valued at $100,000, the taxable itemized value that we would estimate is about $4 for that particular family for a $100,000 home or property. $250,000, probably a more likely scenario or higher, $10 per year, which is a Starbucks order. Impact value for a home that's more in the $500,000 range, which is probably more what we're talking about for Sherburne, $20. Again, a very good Starbucks order. When we look at Franklin at 164, our annual estimated yearly debt is estimated to be just north of $2 million. For a home valued at $100,000, that's $28. For a home estimated at $250,000, that's $71. And again, this is a yearly cost. For a home valued at $500,000, it's $143. So that's a nice dinner out. And it isn't to say that this is not insignificant, because of course it is. No one likes to have to pay more. But we think that the return on investment for the community, what it means for the trades, what it means for the future of the Commonwealth, what it means for our students today and in the future is worth this cost. Certainly there's a cost to bear. It's not to say that there isn't. But we think that this is a reasonable amount that we can pay over the course of 30 years at a borrowed rate of 4.25%, which that's a great rate. If you've looked at interest rates for borrowing right now, it's extremely high. It went down a little bit yesterday, below 8 for a short time. But it may go back up. We can't predict the future. But borrowing this amount, which the total estimated budget project is $285 million, at that borrowing rate, we think is reasonable for the membership communities to absorb. And that's what we're looking for. So we're looking for support from the community on October 24th for folks to come out, noon to 8 p.m. The vote is actually at the Franklin High School, as most votes in town do. And we're looking for folks to tell us what they think about this. Yes, sir.
So if I do the math, $2 million over 30 years is $60 million is the commitment Franklin would be signing up for?
Yes, that's right. Yep.
Okay. Is there any, Franklin get any benefit by having the land that the school sits on? It's in our town? Is that anything in our favor in terms of lowering that amount? Since that land, I don't know who owns that land.
Yeah. Great. So the question for the TV audience, because I'm not sure that they heard it, is: does Franklin have any benefit to having the school seated in the town of Franklin. Actually, the original charter for Tri-County requires that Tri-County be located in Franklin. So that was a part of the original negotiation. But the MSBA formula takes no into account as to what the location is. So if the idea was to say move it to Medway, well, first we'd have to find land in Medway. And then we'd have to change the charter and get buy-in from all the member towns before we could do that. So no direct benefit other than it being located in Franklin.
I have another question. Was there consideration of having a combination of renovation and new? Combined effort?
Yes.
Cost overall?
Yep, so the addition renovation would have added a section off the, and we don't have a diagram of the current building, but it would have added off of the back, and then it would have taken down the current section where many of the shops are. So when you drive up to the building right now, the location immediately on the right, the farthest to the right, that section would come down. But the cost difference was within 10% of a total new building. And would not correct all of the particulars related to ADA compliance in the rest of the facility, where the ramp and the cafeteria and some of the other public spaces are. So knowing that it was within 10%, it is 10% higher for a new building, but the return on investment for 10% more we thought would be worth it. So in essence, one of our partners was thinking about, the decision to lease versus buy a car. If the cost is within 10%, then maybe you think about buying the car because you have equity in something. And this was our line of thinking too.
And just one last question.
Yeah.
Why was the state pushing renovation versus new?
That's a great question for the MSBA. I don't honestly know the answer to that. Do you, Harry?
Well, I know, so the MSBA requires you to look at all options, whether it be renovating the existing space as it is, doing a renovation addition, or a new building altogether. And that's part of their requirement when you get into this program. You need to basically leave no stone unturned as far as the plans for the building go. So what you do is you go through all those options and you look and find out what the most feasible one is. And that's where we determine that it just makes sense. It's most fiscally responsible to go with the new building. When you get into the renovation addition and the renovation, the variance and the cost is so similar, it just makes sense. And when you look at the scope for renovation and renovation addition, there's a lot of costs involved in that there's no return on that investment with, right? The separate mobile classrooms and all the safety barriers and things, those costs add up and you get nothing for it in the end, So you could spend $20 million just in prepping the space for the renovation, or you could take that $20 million, put it towards the new building and there's no interruptions to the school or anything like that. And that's why a new building is so much more feasible, because it's the best return on the investment for the entire school district.
Oh, yes.
Okay.
Oh.
Do you want me to?
Yeah, sure, why not?
So I have a couple questions. The first is whether the building is upgradable in the future, if or whether it can be expanded if for some reason there's a baby boom in the next few years, and all of a sudden all these kids are going to be going to high school. Is it something that's been thought about in terms of making sure that it's going to last, like you said, another 50 years?
Yeah.
No, go ahead.
Okay.
You're doing great.
Yeah, okay. So one of the questions we had to answer actually for the MSBA process is what is your program? Describe what you do, what you want to do, and how can this project help? And so the very first answer that we had to give with that was, this is not an expansion of the school district. We have 1,000 students across 4 years of high school. We're not looking to expand the scope at all. We're just looking to serve the current population better. So we're not looking to go to 1,100, 1,200 that. So for that reason, we think that this fits the needs of the community best for this right now. Is it expandable? The second part of your question, Max? Potentially. And I think what you can expect going forward across the Commonwealth is this back and forth methodology of when a new school is needed, you can use the current land in front of it, behind it, to the side of it to build or expand on from there. And then when that building time's out, you do the reverse. Does that help answer your question? You said you had more.
In terms of the enrollments figures used to determine the formula, that's set in time. So if enrollment changes, is the debt responsibility going to change, or is it going to stay fixed?
It varies with enrollment. Yep.
So would we need another debt? Like if all of a sudden 100 more students go to Franklin, would we need to do another debt exclusion?
So we don't do financing
Right.
for the town.
Oh, sorry.
No, that's okay. So we don't do financing. So ours is really about approving the project, and then how each member community deals with the financing aspect is up to them. It does fluctuate based on enrollment, though, so that's an estimate based on last year's enrollment. And again, it's really up to how the town manages their finances. So we don't get involved in that.
Can you just repeat what you said earlier for the camera about it would fluctuate?
Oh, it would fluctuate based on enrollment. Yep. So that's it. The numbers are based on the enrollment as of 10/1/2022. Next year, the numbers change. So our fees are really based on the number of students. Yep. Oh, one more, then we'll come to you.
Yeah. In terms of the finding an architect for the project, have you done that yet? And what sort of track record have they had of doing buildings and satisfaction with that?
Yep. You want me to take this one?
Yeah, go ahead.
Okay. Yeah, so all of that was part of our MSBA process. So extensive process around using an architect, contract company, and all that. They've been integral in the packet that we submitted to MSBA for the 3 different patterns of, the 3 different options that we had to submit. So all of those people have been on board with us advising this whole process. Peter and I and Harry are very intelligent people, but this is not, we didn't create this. So it's a team of people that come together with our support and our guidance to talk about our vision, and then their expertise to put it on paper and make it a reality.
I'll just.
Yeah, go ahead.
I assume that the projected contribution from each community is just for the new building. Can you just speak to, on an everyday basis, without this new building, how the funding works? Does Franklin currently contribute?
Yep. So you want me to do this one too? Okay, great. This finance degree is coming in really handy tonight. So it is. So every year what happens is we look at our enrollment numbers, and each member town is given an assessment amount that they pay in contribution to our budget. So our budget is comprised of contributions from all of our member towns. We use that. We do our budget the same way Franklin Public Schools does their budget. Our funding just comes from all of our member towns and not one source. So that's where it's a little bit different. Yep.
Yeah, I'll just add one quick thing before we go to your next question. These numbers have been pretty stable. You know, this is. Yes, exactly right. Thank you. Percentage-wise, this is my 4th year serving as a school committee member for Franklin, and these numbers have not changed much. The only real noticeable change has been in Medfield, where I think they doubled from 3 to 6. You had a second question, though.
You mentioned in passing an additional road. Can you just speak to how that flows traffic-wise?
Yeah.
Did I misunderstand?
Oh no, you're absolutely right. You're right. You're right. And it is. We had another one. Oh, it's here. This is a better way to look at it, I think. Maybe not. We'll go over here. So this actually exists right now. So as you come up the site past Arcadia Dental and Starbucks, there actually is a gravel road here now that remains from the original construction in the 70s. And so for reasons that maybe Harry might know, part of the design was to utilize that road to make for better ingress and egress from the site at the busiest times of day for school buses, for students who drive, and then certainly for deliveries and equipment at the back. So it is certainly, as we think about adding new pavement in this environment where we're careful about stormwater runoff, that's part of the plan as well. So test drills, drilled wells will happen for water quality control and assurance.
So it comes out to Old West Central, just as the existing driveway does. So
Yes.
So just one more way in.
That's right. That's right. So this road actually exists, and this is the way up to Pond Street and Medway. And this is the slope up the hill, and so we're adding this new road here.
It's already there. It's already there. It's basically the passage for the utility lines running up to the property. So it would just be made into a more, it's a gravel road. It would be made into a more permanent road to help, and it'll help with the flow of traffic, and it'll help us separate the construction traffic while the new building's being built and keep it completely separate from the daily school traffic.
So I could look at, for the existing gravel road today, I would be able to see
Oh,
it to
yes.
understand where that's.
Yes. The only thing that would change on it is right now that gravel road, it doesn't turn this way. It actually just comes down straight this way. But the design has it starting here and turning up to help with the flow of traffic and the swing room you need for a bus or a construction vehicle.
Any other questions? I know you have one. I can see it.
Couple of follow-up clarification ones. From prior presentations, there was discussion around the enrollment, certainly the capacity currently is 1,000. You referenced the more need for more skilled staff, trades, et cetera. What's the latest in regards to, clearly this being project is funded or being scoped at the 1,000. Is there still a discussion at the state that potentially either here or in some others, they would build some additional capacity to meet the needs that are projected to come?
Yeah, so that's a great question about adding capacity to the system. Yes, I heard your lips separate.
I was ready.
There you go.
So I think at the state level, what they're seeing is they're seeing enrollment go through the roof for vocational schools, and then how to create capacity. So a lot of the push right now at the state level is how do we create capacity with the existing buildings. So they're looking at after dark programs, they're looking at night programs. So that has been really the focus for the state for the last, I would say, 4 or 5 years, about increasing capacity through those other avenues. So utilizing buildings. So now we have a beautiful building that we use from 7:30 to 2:30 for educational purposes and then extracurricular activities. How do we then capitalize on when that round of students go home? Do we create an afternoon from a 3 to 6 and then complement with our night programs? So really that's where the focus has been on. It hasn't been on, it hasn't been on building and expanding. It's been utilizing the spaces that already exist because there's been, concern around underutilization. Yeah. Did you have another one, Steve?
More of an update. I did find out this afternoon that the Tri-County ballots have indeed arrived
Oh.
at the town clerk office. So beginning tomorrow, anyone who chooses can vote early. Tomorrow, they will be mailing out the ballots for those who requested mail ballots, and then clearly the vote on the 24th from 12 to 8 would work as well.
Perfect. So I just want to repeat that. So in case you couldn't hear Steve, he said that the ballots have arrived. So you are able to vote at Town Hall. Early voting begins tomorrow. If you had requested a mail-in ballot, those will be going out this week as well. And then otherwise, we would love to see you on October 24th from 12 to 8 at the high school voting.
Do we know what, and I don't, maybe you guys are not the ones, but what the actual cost per resident will be if those numbers stay the same?
Per resident?
Well, it's probably gonna come out as some sort of assessment.
Yeah, it's based on this chart here. So we had to provide numbers to MSBA so that they can provide these estimates. So for Franklin, the top line, we're alphabetically first, but because we're presenting here, we're also at the top. It would be, depending on the valuation of the home value, between $2,877 to about $150, depending on the valuation.
And that's yearly.
Per year.
Yeah.
For how many years?
30.
30 years.
So we should talk about our website because there's a lot more information. Excuse me. There's a lot more information to be had. If you saw us at Harvest Fest, we were handing out these brochures. These are also available at Tri-County, where you can walk in and gather some information. If you're looking for information about the adult and continuing ed programs, we also have that. I know Bob Foley, our director of continuing and adult ed, would love to have more. Is looking certainly for more instructors who can teach the trades, but would love to talk with folks who are looking to expand their learning. It is about lifelong learning. We've primarily focused on the high school experience for our traditional trades, but it is a building that is utilized throughout the evenings and stays open late for a variety of purposes. When we're there for school committee meetings on Wednesdays once a month, there are students actively learning in a variety of classroom settings. But on this brochure, there's a QR code and the website, which I'll just quickly read. It's www.tri-countybuilding.com. And there is a link to great videos. You can see pictures of some of the problems that we currently have in the existing facility and ways that we're looking to remediate it, along with meeting notes and additional documents. You have more questions. I see it. Yes.
This might be a Steve question.
I love those.
Steve question. This might be a Steve question, but are there any debt exclusions that are going to be coming off within the immediate future that might help blunt the impact of a newer debt exclusion?
Yeah, and coincidentally, that was also discussed in one of the candidate interviews we just did in preparation for the November election. Don't hold me specifically to it, but between Keller Sullivan and Remington Jeff, I believe those are the nearest to be coming off in the next couple of years. And then I think it's 2035, the high school finally comes off, but not anytime soon. Well, it's hard to see the down because you always have the automatic 2.5 in there. So it's not going up as much. It's still going to go up. The two other places we can see that in the near future, there's a joint budget subcommittee meeting, I believe, on October 11th, prior to the town council meeting. They'll be getting into some of the finances side. And then in December, if not late November, when we set the tax rate, they'll be going through that piece and showing where the assessment and the valuations are, because as others have mentioned, clearly we need a bigger pie. The pot's not big enough, which is, in terms of the other piece, if we don't do the debt exclusion for the 2.1, assuming it's truly that for 1 year, then it's 2.1 million that would come out from our operation budget to fund this, affecting across the board, police, fire, schools, library, yada, yada, yada. So it's going to be a tough choice for Franklin to make. But with the other question I was going to say, I'm assuming while you've got one with high attendance tonight, there may be more sessions that people can ask and get answers and questions, or do you also have another, email address or, phone number to call, or just stop by the Tri-County office to get additional questions and answers?
Take that back and answer that. Yes, anyone looking for information can find it. I would say the first and best resource is probably the website, where you can find the answers to most common questions. However, should there be more demand, we could certainly do more community outreach meetings. We've had 6 to 8, I want to say, community meetings at the high school for all 11 member towns, and unfortunately turnout has been low. You see that at many government meetings, but it's true for that too. But certainly anyone with any questions, certainly reach out to us. Our names and email addresses are on the website. As representatives of Franklin, you can certainly go to the school, email the superintendent. Any way to reach out for questions, we're happy to answer. An informed public is the best resource.
And just to clarify a little bit, that tags into are there any debt exclusions that are coming off? This debt exclusion doesn't start when we start the project. So this doesn't happen until 2028. So there wouldn't be payment from any of our member towns until closer to 2028. Yeah. So just to clarify that, because I know that was some confusion. People felt, the conversation's happening now or whatever, but financially there's going to be no commitment from the towns until 2028.
So the most important point to reiterate here is that the vote on the 24th is yes or no to this project. How it gets paid for by each member town is up to those towns. And yes, as we've discussed here, and Steve and Max and others have elaborated on, there are lots of ways to get there.
While we're here for Franklin, November 7th, town election has that ballot question on it.
How we fund it, yes.
We in Franklin.
Right. Not yes or no to the project, which is the 24th, but the November 7th is a different vote. Thank you for clarifying that. Yep.
October 24th is a majority rules vote.
Yes, I'm glad you brought that up. So we need one more vote in the yes column to move forward with the project, and that's across all towns. So it's all additive.
Regardless of how many we contribute.
That,
Everyone is waiting.
that's right. So everyone has an equal vote. All member towns vote at the exact same time, and however it shakes out across all towns votes, it's not scaled. It's just a total vote, yes versus no.
For information's sake, in my conversation with the town clerk this morning, we touched on this topic. There's 134,000 voters registered across the 11 communities. Based on our Franklin representation in turnout at a ballot election for a debt exclusion, we're approximately 40%. So if we took that as the guide, we're talking 50 to 60,000 voters in that noon to 8. Based on some of what I've been hearing, I'd be surprised if we really get to the 50, 60,000 voters.
I think you're right to be skeptical about turnout, because this is the only thing on the ballot. It is a singular question, yes or no. And that's the way that it has to be by statute.
One more thing, just to clarify too, I think it's important that, the vote, if it's a no vote, we still have to move forward. So I think that that's important for voters to understand too. So if it is a no vote on the new build, we still have to move forward with renovations and upgrades and, safety, kind of what Peter talked about. But none of that would be reimbursable. So that's why at this point, this is a really important vote, because it's looking at, yes, we have to move forward either way, but do we want to subscribe to some reimbursement to help that cost, or do we feel like we're going to fund that individually?
And to make that point even more clear, because that was very clear, I think, it would be a Band-Aid approach. It'd be $160 some odd million to fix what we have, knowing that there are going to be things we can't predict are going to go wrong again. And then we go through the MSBA process all over again. And instead of being at 285, we're maybe talking about 350, 400 million. And the cost gets borne the same way.
So if the vote is no, are the towns going to have a debt exclusion anyway for the cost to renovate the building?
These are great questions for your town council.
We don't know.
We can't,
we can't control
it's outside of our scope, and I don't mean to be, sarcastic, but
Yes.
Yeah, yeah.
Towns would have to pay for it
yeah.
somehow.
So that's, and that's what we talked about, how we've never done an assessment. We've never done any form of that. So some schools, if you look, regional vocational schools will do special assessments for renovations or upgrades or stuff like that. We haven't had any of that. Never once. So that's something to also keep into consideration. But yeah, the funding piece is tricky for us, because it's outside of our scope. Yeah.
We wish we could supply the million, and you should play Powerball and then donate to the school. Any other questions? These have been great.
So I'm assuming, unlike the Franklin High School where there was a kind of a cookie cutter, like,
Yes.
there
Oh,
is
yeah.
not one for Tri-County.
You're,
There's not a plan.
yeah,
Because
yeah.
you said like all of them are kind of going at the same time.
Yeah, the model school building.
That's the term.
Yes, yes. I think Franklin was the last of the model school building programs, because there
I
were,
think there's some elements of it, though. Like,
Yeah.
I think that common area that you see, the green space in the middle, that is one of those collaborative workspaces. So those are big. Those are at the high school. So they're just areas to do some, unique learning experiences. Some of the elements are, but I think back in the day when that one was done, it was like there was 3 or 4 models they picked from. This is a little bit different.
yeah, vocational schools, yeah.
There's shops.
Yes,
Plan for new technology or stuff. So that's what-
right.
I'm going to do one little political plug too. Legislation is out there now too, because obviously to recreate and rebuild a new vocational school is much more costly than your typical high school because of the equipment and a variety of reasons. So there is legislation that we're out there, Dr. McGuire's been working diligently to support that would increase funding and reimbursement for a project like this, because currently it's not really taken into consideration the extra elements of what it costs to rebuild a vocational school. So if you're interested in politically getting involved because you have some extra time, go out there and look at those bills that are out there. She's a great advocate for that. She did an interview the other day with the local radio station, so I'm sure she talked about it there too. But there are ways that we're looking at other avenues to help support that funding mechanism that we've presented here today. So.
Well said, Jen. That's what I do. Well, thank you for your time and coming to learn about something that could really benefit our students and students elsewhere in the district. All right, you're welcome.
This program was made possible by your Franklin friends and neighbors, good folks just like you. Thanks for supporting Franklin TV. And thanks for watching.